With this slide now, you can see we've got our hosts. So we have the pleasure today of being alongside our colleagues and friends, Simon Jones. Many of you know him as our Africa manager, right? So Simon is at the headquarters office for UJV today, and he will be speaking alongside Katie Lindblad, who's a member of the business development team and taking care of our agents and friends in the southeast of the United States. And last but not least, you've got my picture there as the head of the department. But we are thrilled to talk a little bit about business development and also how we can assist you. So just as Katie is located in the Southeast and taking care of you, we've got directors that take care of you wherever you're based. So if you haven't heard from us or if you need to reach out, just take a look at where you're based and then just send us a little note. We'd be very, very happy to engage with you, troubleshoot anything, answer any questions, and just, in reality, talk a little bit more about UJV, not only about Africa, but maybe of some of the other product regions that we have. So let us know if we can be of any assistance. With that, the next slide, let's talk about how we are going to be awarding an incentive program for this webinar. So for all of you that have registered and are participating in the webinar, we actually have a prize for you. It's going to be a total of 7 nights in South Africa, with 3 nights at the 12 Apostles, 2 nights at Bushman's Cloth, and then 2 nights at Segura. Plus, we will be providing $3,000 for you to book your air or maybe go shopping for some of that great safari gear in advance of your trip. So this prize is for 2 people, and the booking window would be for any bookings that are done from today up until the end of the year will count as 1 entry into that prize. So if you book 7 safaris with us, you have 7 chances of winning. So the more that you sell, the more opportunities that you have to win this great trip to South Africa. We'll go over the details towards the latter part of the webinar as well, once again. But with that, I'm going to pass it on to Simon and Katie. Are we ready to embrace the magic of UJV Africa? I think so.
David, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that has joined today. I've seen a lot of new faces and names on here, so it's absolutely wonderful. So what we're going to be doing today, guys, is we're just going to go through the contents firstly and kind of really talk to you and tell you all about UJV Africa. So we'll be going through about 8 points today. If we can save the questions to last, Laura, who will be managing that, will kind of feedback. So as we go along, please stick all your questions in the message box, and then we'll address all of those come the end of the presentation. So the evolution of UJV Africa. A lot of people on this call might know of UJV and what we are strong for, and that has always historically been the Caribbean and Mexico. The business was created 14 years ago, and that was kind of the bread and butter of our business. However, the dreaded word COVID came in the early 2020s, and the owner of the company, Stephen Kadosh, it's his birthday today, happy birthday, Stephen, he had this idea in terms of expanding. And the 2 areas that he had in mind was Europe and, of course, Africa. So coming from a DMC background, I've represented some of the most prestigious over the last 20 years. My lovely colleague Katie has worked for Sangita for around 8 to 9 years. I'm sure it's a name that all of you know. We thought, how are we going to go about this? What are we going to do to kind of step into this market, and how are we going to present ourselves? So the only good thing we got from COVID was time, let's be honest. So we had the whole of 2021 to put together a small team of experts that can kind of come into the market and kind of try to create a small footprint in that market. So we created documents, we went about finding our itinerary builder. And the nice thing that we had at UJV was a loyal supporting already. So we kind of created the kind of mold of UJV with the current database that we had. Currently, we're in going into the 3rd year of UJV Africa. And I think we've come a long way, guys. We've built a small reputation within the market. We have great relationships with a lot of our current database and beyond that. And a lot of people are starting to kind of talk a little bit now about, okay, who are you doing your Africa with? Why not try UJV Africa? And for us, that's a huge testament to kind of all the hard work that we've put in over the years. So why would you choose UJV Africa? So, you know, it's a very good question. And a lot of people will ask is, how are you different? How can you come into the market when there's been some top players in the game for the last 20 years? So one of the nice things, again, that we did have with that time was finding a group of specialists come in to the company that have a passion for Africa, take their time to put beautiful itineraries together. And I think the biggest selling point for me is having access to us on the same time zone. A big headache, especially when the clocks go back, etc., is kind of getting someone on the ground in Africa to answer your question when you need something answered right away. One thing the team does so well is pick up that phone, give you a call, take away that stress. You know, when you're in the heat of booking Greece and Italy, the last thing you need are all these little questions that are coming in from your valued clients, and you can't answer them for 24 hours. So reach out to us, we'll help right away. Accessibility to us is huge. And as we go in further into the presentation, I'll explain why. So in which areas is UJV strongest? So when we started, again, UJV Africa, we had a strong kind of presence in Southern Africa, but it has since evolved. And now I would say our business is roughly around 65% on the Southern Africa side and around 45% in East Africa. So as you can see from our map here, South Africa, of course, is extremely popular to everyone and everyone knows it, but going cross-border into Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, and then moving across into the east side of Africa, we of course have Rwanda with the gorilla tracking, which is now definitely the bucket list experience, Kenya, Tanzania, and then the islands, guys. One thing that was quite easy for us was to contract islands. We have huge strengths in the Caribbean. So when it came to Seychelles, Mauritius, Zanzibar, Mozambique, we added that to our portfolio. It's become extremely popular now to do that bush beach kind of honeymoon and wedding. And again, we can assist you in those regions too. So how we operate and the services that we offer. So again, when booking the Caribbean, you could quickly pop on 5 nights, shoot to the airport, and over you go. As most of you know on this call, not as simple when it comes to Africa. So we have positioned ourselves, and as the rest of the business is evolving, into a small boutique DMC. Everything that we do is customized for your business, white labeled itineraries. We like to stay transparent, guys. We like to shine you in lights. And, you know, everything that comes from us, it includes your commission structures. Should you want net rates, that's something that we can offer too. So we work how your business operates. And again, we make you look amazing. African knowledge, of course, that's the most important thing. So we have a team of experts that solely sell Africa. We are UJV Africa. We are our own pod, our own division under the Ultimate Jet Vacations banner. Our team is well traveled across the globe in terms of the continent. Tim, one of our team members, has recently just got back from Kenya, so fire some questions at him. But overall, you know, the knowledge that we possess within the division is roughly around 65 years without giving away anyone's age. So we have a team member in Cape Town, the lovely Sumay. She is our on-ground support. One thing that when we started UJV Africa, I hate the word emergency. Every time you see something coming in from the emergency number, it strikes panic. You know, you wake up on a Saturday morning, all your client was asking for is what the weather's looking like, but there's a whole string of emails and it causes stress. So we have an on-ground concierge in both Cape Town and up in Namibia to service both sides of the continent again. We have that 24-hour revolving clock, guys, which again is nice for everyone because when we wake up in the morning on the east or west coast, you can reach out to us to answer your questions. When you hop into bed in the evening, of course, the clock moves. And then we have Sumay and Rob looking after all the happenings on the ground while your clients are there. A pre-trip concierge. So again, one of the things that I think sets us aside is once your booking is done with the Africa specialist and the deposit is all settled, we have a lovely team of support girls. We have Carla, we have Gina, and we're soon to be having a new member to our team. So what is their job? Their job is to make sure that you don't forget anything, folks. So is your passport valid? Does it still have 6 months on it? Do you have back-to-back pages in your passport? Send through your flight details. checking in on dietary requirements, checking in on all those little things that, again, can be an aggravation to you. We one step ahead. We've gone and built these beautiful pre-departure documents. So once again, when we send those through to you, they can be white labeled. There is no branding on them originally, but if you want to kind of have them white labeled, we can do that. And it breaks down everything from tipping, what you can expect in country, what plug points that you will have there whilst there. And again, it's all those little things that you might not think of, we've thought of to kind of alleviate those questions. Dedicated air team, anything within East or Southern Africa, we can assist with. Should your clients be more on the upscale side and want charter flights, we can arrange those too. You just let us know and we'll get that done for you. So a couple of extra UJV benefits is the VIP emails. One thing that is a non-negotiable for us is, as I mentioned before, is putting you in lights. So as soon as that booking is done, we are sending emails to the hotel to advise that it is you doing the booking, advising who your clients are, putting beautiful welcome notes in the rooms, etc. And we're all about the cheesy stuff at UJV Africa, guys. We want them to remember you, you know, throughout that trip. What can we do? Little notes in the room, little stops along the way, you know, little things like that that really enhance your client's trip, to come back to say, oh my God, that trip was so amazing. Thank you for all the little bits that you've done throughout the way. Our commission structure, to be quite honest with you, there's nothing in terms of competitiveness in the market. We're extremely comfortable right there. We know that our rates, again, are up there with the best. We never mark over rack, which I think is a huge thing. Some others do. Fair play to them, but we're an extremely transparent team. I want to give you and your client the best possible deal. So again, you have control of the booking. Everything that comes through from us can just be forwarded on to your client. So yeah, consortia amenities, beg your pardon, is another thing. All virtuoso amenities, etc. All those bits and bobs get passed through to your clients. So remember that too. In terms of technology, we use Where2. Where2 is a digital kind of link that actually gives so much information that, again, it alleviates questions. We go ahead and build the trip, we put in all the information, and your client can kind of click on it, and it kind of tells them a little story from the accommodations, from the destinations, from the dates, etc. And the most important thing, a day-to-day breakdown, what time they'll be picked up in the morning, what time their flight leaves. We ensure that that is all updated before your clients leave. We send you a little app key as well, and within that app key, it can be downloaded on your telephone, and your clients can kind of follow that throughout their trip. Should anything change throughout the course of that trip, we update it on our end, and that in turn will update the app. So how can we help you sell safaris and grow your business? So some of these questions will always come up, right? And it can be a frustration. Again, if you haven't sold Africa too much, you know, and you know, you're quite new to selling it, how much safari is too much safari? So Katie, I'm going to bring you in here for a second, because I'm sure the crowd is getting tired of my voice already. So what do you think? How much safari is too much safari? I'm sure for me and you, we could do it for days and weeks, but what do you think?
Thank you, Simon. And I'm sure nobody is tired of your lovely accent. You know, I just want to give a bit of background quickly. You know, prior to coming into UJV about six and a half months ago, I was with Singita for about 8.5 years. So I remember actually the day that Simon called me and said, hey, Kate, I'm launching a division within UJV, an Africa division. I thought, oh, wow, that's super interesting. I can't wait to see, you know, what magic happens with you kind of at the helm of that. And I can say, you know, from that moment until me leaving Singita earlier this year, you know, the UJV Africa growth to Singita alone was pretty extraordinary. And as most people on this call probably know, Singita is, you know, at the upper echelon when it comes to the product in Africa, very high price point. And, you know, no company or no advisor is going to grow their business to the likes of Singita without serious expertise, very high service levels, and really having their finger on the pulse of the product and understanding that over in Africa. So my hat's off to Simon and the team, first of all, for doing what they've done just in the short amount of time that UJV Africa has really been out in the marketplace. And I can tell you from my perspective, what really sets UJV Africa apart is, well, certainly the expertise, the service levels, the physical location of the advisors. Them being in the States is huge. They are only a phone call away, no matter what time of day you're working. They can jump on the phone with you and help you sell a trip. They can guide you into selling a trip if you don't want to involve them directly with your client. We're here to work with you and ultimately help you sell safaris and grow your business. From a pricing point of view, I saw and I see how many operators in this space work. And I'm so impressed by the pricing and the competitive nature of it at UJV Africa. As Simon said, you're looking at the equivalent of rack rates. So there's not these huge, crazy 20, 30% markups like you see from a lot of individuals in this space. And, you have a dedicated advisor at UJV, like you do for our core destinations, but even for Africa. And that's huge, because if you're selling quite a lot of Africa, quite a lot of safaris, it's nice just to go to one person at UJV, whether it be Tim, Ruby, or Amy. You develop a relationship with that person, and it really becomes a partnership. They are here to help you out and to create these magical itineraries for your clients. And the turnaround times I'm always impressed by as well. I'll get copied on a lot of inquiries initially for UJV Africa. And then by the time the team comes around with a phenomenal itinerary, it kind of blows my mind, because I don't know how quickly they can actually piece it all together. I think the feedback in the marketplace, don't tell the other teams at UJV, since I've been out in the field talking to so many advisors, so often it comes up, oh my gosh, an advisor will say to another one, you don't use UJV Africa? I cannot tell you how amazing that team is. They have totally, helped me grow my Africa business. They're so easy to work with. Their documents are great. It's all white labeled, so it looks like I've personally created all of this for my clients. So the feedback in the marketplace, in particular for the UJV Africa team, is like truly a step above even our core team, who are superstars in their own right. And in terms of how much safari is too much safari, I think, Americans are often time poor. So a lot of times we'll get a question like, if my clients have 7 days, can they go over and do an Africa trip? I would say that's too short. But, I would say, as long as you have at least 4 nights of safari, 3 minimum, you can make a trip work. Of course, that would be tying in other areas. For example, if you're going to South Africa, Cape Town, Wineland, safari, etc. If you have 8 or 10 days, it's tight, but you can do a really beautiful trip kind of in that length of time. And in terms of like the right area for your clients, Simon and the team will know that every region has such different things to offer, but it's complicated if you've never been on safari. So if you have clients who have never been on safari, you don't know what's a good fit for them, and you don't understand the weather patterns, the migratory patterns, or the lodge styles. It's a lot being thrown at you at once if you're trying to piece all of this together yourself. So, relying on like the experts is really the way to go in that case. And, budget, of course, safari is not the most inexpensive destination in the world. And, I've seen, just since joining UJV, some amazing trips up to those $1 million bookings, down to those $100,000 bookings, down to the $20,000 bookings. And the feedback is consistently, sky high. So we can kind of make the magic happen depending on the budget, within reason, of course, and time of year, because, naturally in peak season over in Africa, June, July, August, and festive season, you're looking at prime time rates, of course, across the board at the lodges.
Phenomenal, Katie, and again, spot on with everything. And I think when it comes to these questions and, selling Africa, it can sometimes be daunting to kind of look at this and say, well, I don't really know what to do. Utilize your UJV Africa specialist, utilize myself, utilize Katie. I always say to the team, I will prostitute my accent in terms to kind of show people that, again, I'm from the destination, but I do know what I'm talking about. And that goes along with the rest of the team too. And we love that. Getting us on a call, getting us on a Zoom, will get the clients excited, before they've even received the itinerary. And the nice thing about getting us on that call, guys, is we'll pick the brain a little bit. We'll be like, what's your expectations? You know, answering that, how long should we be away for? And by getting all that information and kind of being able to kind of put that trip together and sending it through to the clients, most of the time, 95% of the time, they already know what we've talked about. They're ready to kind of put that deposit down. So please, again, always lean on us. Who is behind all the Africa magic? So at the moment, we have a team of 3, but I have to say, whilst there are 3 Africa specialists here, Katie, David Salis, Kevin Parash, anything that you need in regards to Africa, they'll be able to answer those questions. Katie comes from a background with Singita. Mr. Salis comes from a Rwanda, one and only background, Cape Town. And Kevin Parash, who some of you might know as well, is up on the West Coast, and he's been to Africa a few times too. So again, the company itself, although we have an Africa division, a lot of people have traveled there. So Tim lived in Tanzania on and off for a few years. Cape Town is his favorite city in the world. He's just come back from Kenya and has a new love for that too. He's climbed Kilimanjaro 2.5 times. I don't know why he backed out on the 3rd time, but 2.5 is enough for me. So Africa Luxury Travel, he's probably been around 8 years now, and he's definitely one of the seniors within the team. Ruby Russell. Ruby, she was with me from about the first 8 months of UJV Africa. She's been doing luxury travel for well over 15, 20 years. Again, I'll be very careful. I don't give away anyone's ages here. She will shout at me. And she's traveled extensively throughout the continent. She was married in Tanzania. She was adopted by a Maasai tribe, believe it or not. And if memory serves correct, she was married on the Ngorongoro Crater too. Amy Fox, while she might not say a lot on calls like this, rest assured, once she gets to know you, she really opens up and is a wealth of knowledge too. She is from South Africa. She's just down the road from me, actually, but I can't remember her as a kid. But she's been doing Africa for about 16 years. And she joined us about 10 months ago. And we just love having Amy on the team, as I'm sure a few of you on this call have dealt with her and love her. So client wins, you know, the most important thing about selling Africa is you guys. And, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to feedback and great feedback, even bad feedback, I guess that's what it's all about. So just to kind of go through a few highlights, we have Shayna, who is a huge supporter of UJV Africa. She is part of Viva Voyage, who is part of In the Know Experiences. And just to highlight a few things, you know, she talks about personal touch, the things that kind of we've put towards the trip and things that we've put into the rooms for the clients along the way. She really can't get enough of us, and she's been a huge ambassador in terms of kind of referring us to other members around the globe too. Madeline Stuber, part of the Stuber Travel Group. As you can see there, UJV Africa helps us do everything as any of our other sort of partners will, but one of their favorite DMCs. Strong relationships on the ground, which she noticed while being with me in Africa. And again, thanks, Maddie, for being a huge supporter. Miss Kathy Bernstein, I think I might have seen Kathy's name on the call. It took a while for us to convert her, but I think she is now a UJV Africa kind of supporter. So thank you, Kathy. I remember meeting you a good few years ago. We recently did a couple of your clients' trips, and I think we've converted you all. Well, I hope so, but thank you so much. So yeah, I'm going to probably pass back to David now.
Thank you. Yeah,
of course.
Thank you so much, Simon and Katie. You guys got me all excited to go back to Africa. So might have to chat with you guys about that soon. But in the meantime, all of you that are on the call will have an opportunity to travel to Africa with UJV. So let's go ahead before we go into some of the questions that have been coming in on the chat. Let's go ahead and just review what that incentive looks like. So we talked about having a 7-night stay in South Africa with 3 nights at the 12 Apostles, 2 nights at Bushman's Cloth, and then 2 nights at Segera, plus the $3,000 that we will provide to you so that you can either book your air or that amazing safari gear that you'd want to be sporting in the vehicles. So again, as a reminder, every single booking that you do from today up until the end of the year counts as 1 entry for the the incentive. So if you sell 6 or 7 safaris between now and then, we will of course be very, very thankful. But you will have 6 or 7 opportunities to win this great trip. So the more you sell, the more opportunities that you have to win this. So we'll send this out and provide more information on it. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. With that, I'm going to go ahead and read off one question that came in from one of the participants that asked, is it too late to book July 2025? There's a family of 5 that want to travel in July 2025. So I think the question came in from Sabrina. We don't think so. We, of course, we need to take a look at what destination, right? And I think with a family of 5 is not too large, right? And so we can take a look at that for you. So I think Laura will send you my email address and go ahead and send us in that request. We'll pass it on to Simon and his team, and we'll take a look at availability and pricing for you. So we'd be delighted to do that for you. Now I'm going to read a couple of the questions that have been coming into the chat, and I'll call out Simon to maybe answer the first one. So in terms of what is that general starting budget that the UJV can work with per person per day, you know, in terms of selling like an Africa safari? I know that we talk a lot about like what it would cost for like an average 7-nighter. I haven't broken it down by per person per day, but I'll let you answer that, Simon.
Perfect. Good question, to be honest with you. So, you know, when it comes to a trip itself, if we had to say what could we put together for a honeymoon couple or a couple traveling to Africa? And we normally say around 15,000 total budget for around 9 nights. So again, if we had to say per day in Cape Town, I would say you're looking at around between 500 and 600 per person, dependent on an entry kind of level room. And then when it comes to the safari, I would say we're probably looking at between 1,000 and 1,200 on kind of the kind of more entry level side of luxury. Because again, remember at UJV Africa, guys, we're the same as the rest of the business. We do focus on high end product. The luxury you have with Africa that a lot of people might not know, there is a great high-end 4-star that would be a 5-star anywhere else in the world. So yeah, remember when it comes to total trip, I'd say lowest sort of starting point would be around 15,000 total.
Thank you, Simon. That's a great question. I went ahead and I answered that also on the chat so that everybody can just kind of take a look at that. Now, with talking about that 5-star product, right? All of you know that UJV does focus in that around the world, and certainly Africa is not an exception there. There's a question about the type of lodges or hotels or experiences that we are selling in Africa. And that question is coming from Julie, and she asked, do you, meaning UJV, partner mostly with the big brand name lodges, right? Like the Singitas or the One and Onlys that might have a consortium affiliation, or do we also have those family-run boutiques in Africa, Simon?
Another wonderful question, and I'm glad that came up. So one of our mottos at UJV is we are very unbiased. And what I mean by that is not everyone can, unfortunately, afford to go to Singita, the One and Only, the Belmont properties, etc. So what we do is, again, by having that conversation with you trying to pull that budget from the clients, that might be quite hard. So find out where they've stayed in the past. Oh, they stay at Four Seasons, Roccaforte property up in Rome. You know, by getting us that information, we'll be able to put that trip together. There are properties that come in, again, at a quite moderate kind of price point that is 5-star up in the Madikwe region or up in the Eastern Cape, i.e. Shamwari. So no, we work with most product throughout Southern and East Africa. And again, it's that information that you feed through to us that we can put that perfect trip together.
Great question. The next question, Simon, actually talks a little bit about how we work. So the question's coming in from Yuli, was, are we subcontracting with local partners, or are we, meaning UJV Africa, the feet on the ground? And he also loves the cheesy stuff.
So very good question as well. So the majority of our contracts are, again, done direct. The islands, as I mentioned to you, in Africa are all done direct. We do have partners on the ground for the transfers and touring that happens in both Southern and East Africa. not many people have their own vehicles on the ground in Africa.
Mm.
So again, we're using partners like Jared Tours, Samsara, for example, in kind of Cape Town, and then up across the border, people like Wild Horizons. So again, it just depends on where the clients are going and which partner will utilize for kind of all those bits and bobs.
Great. Thank you so much. Questions are rolling in, which I absolutely love. So the next question comes in, I think from Zoe, and she's asking what destination or destinations are best for a first-time trip to Africa and why? She knows that it depends mostly on the points of interest, but what are we finding that's consistently a great option? I know that we get this and we see this across the line, and it varies a lot also from where the traveler is. Some of our Mexican clients love a specific part of Africa that, I mean, maybe some of the American clients are not necessarily traveling to. But Simon, what do you think would be like the best fit for a first-time trip to Africa? I have my opinions, but I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, and I would love to hear that opinion too, David, because again, I think every trip to Africa, there's no bad trip to Africa, but the question is, where would you send a first timer? Let's just say a couple wanting to go to Africa, experience safari. Their focus is, yes, we want to spend a few days on safari, but we don't want to spend our whole time on safari. Then I would go to South Africa, because the luxury that you have there, of course, is visiting Cape Town, number one, visiting the winelands. You don't necessarily have to drink wine to enjoy the winelands, because South Africa has become such a huge kind of, so popular in regards to the cuisine. The food is just absolutely amazing. And then, of course, you can finish on safari. So South Africa, of course, is, and that's not being biased, anyone who's ever thinking that, I just do feel that, again, it kind of ticks all the boxes in regards to first safari. And a hop across the border into the likes of Victoria Falls is very popular for us too. It just depends on the amount of time that you have. We know most Americans, of course, still working, have roughly around 10 nights. So within that 10 nights, if we can do a combo between South Africa and a quick hop over to Zimbabwe, that would be where I would suggest.
Yeah. And, just as Katie mentioned, a lot of times, unfortunately, here in the United States, we're time poor. And so at least my opinion on that would be like, look, you're going to go to Africa. Why don't you just go see it all in a one-stop shop? And I think for me, it's Rwanda, because it's actually the only place in the world where you could do a traditional Big Five safari, right? Like, on land, with the open, Land Rover, also in the water, right? So you're seeing the two types of safaris. You can also then trek and go see the chimps. And then last but not least, you're trekking to see the mountain gorillas. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. And then, if you've got about 10 nights, you can sort of squeeze that in there, but it'll check off all of those boxes in case. So again, very different experiences that if you're enjoying the winelands in South Africa or combining it with some of the other countries that are around there, or if you're going into the eastern part of Africa, like with Rwanda, to see the magical primates. So just a little bit to get you inspired. And of course, Simon and his team will be delighted to put together any of these experiences for your clients. So let's go ahead, and there's a couple more questions in there. So there's a question here is, do you handle assisting with the firearms permit if the couple desire a hunting safari? Is that something that we're doing, Simon?
Absolutely not. We will not entertain any hunting whatsoever. We'll do the pre or posts in regards to the accommodation, but when it comes to the hunting side, it's something that we have a firm stance against to assist with, unfortunately.
No, thank you for clarifying that. We get asked that all the time. Another question coming in is, do you have any partner lodges on the rim of the Ngorongoro crater?
Yeah, again, obviously there's the Crater Lodge, you have the And Beyond property too. Those are kind of our two top sellers. Another one that's just outside the crater, around a 15-minute drive, is the Manor by Elawana, which is quite popular for us too. The crater's a strange one for me. As much as I enjoy the crater experience, it's not an area that I particularly push on clients unless they really want to do it, because once you visited the Serengeti and surrounds, I feel it's a little underwhelming, to be honest with you. But again, I've always got to look at it from the client's lens as opposed to my own lens. So should you want to put it a client in the crater itself, yes, we can assist there too.
Great. There's a question that came in from Danielle about my inspiration with the Rwanda itinerary. She says, what's kind of a starting price for that itinerary that David described, right? And so, Simon, just to recap, it'll involve a stay in Akagera, right? It'll involve Nungwe, and then, of course, the Volcanoes National Park, maybe with a night or two in Kigali in there. Would you be able to kind of give like a rough estimate of what something like that would cost?
Well, straight off the bat, we've got, let's take the gorilla. So 1,500 per permit, 2 people, we're in for 3,000. If we had to spend 3 nights in Kagera, I'd say around 1,000 to 3. You're looking at about, if I had to take a wild stab at it, between 10 to 12,000 per person.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And then, of course, there's many different types of options, specifically in volcanoes, all the way up to the Singitas and the one and onlys, and then some, of course, that are less expensive.
Exactly. That would be very entry kind of level into sort of Rwanda, because as you know, David, the likes of the one and only and Singitas and Basatis can really push the price up. So then you could be looking at 15 plus per person should you start wanting to kind of entertain those properties.
There's a question here from Julie that I actually love, and I think that between Katie and Simon, you guys can really answer this. So she asks, client qualification questions are always so important, but what questions would you want us to ask clients that are very Africa specific that we might not think of?
Katie, you want it, or would you like me to take it?
I'll give my 2 cents and then you can chime in.
Okay, there you go.
I think if it's a newer client, certainly understanding if they've been to Africa before, that's probably a natural question. I think just finding out what they're interested in, because if your clients are gung-ho photographers and all they care about is the wildlife and big wide open spaces, naturally East Africa would be a better fit for them, because South Africa in particular, that usually is a safari for a handful of nights. Then you do other elements like a Cape Town, the winelands, the coast, etc. And I think if they've never been to Africa before, getting an idea of, what they're really looking for, what they envision their first time to Africa being, because if it is those big wide open spaces, like, the migration like they've seen in Nat Geo when they were growing up, that's very different to like a Southern Africa experience. Or if they've dreamt of going to the Delta their whole life, of course, then naturally you'd be looking at Southern Africa and Botswana in particular. Yeah, Simon, what else would you add to that?
Well, and again, it is a great question, and we've gone as far as creating a document that I can send. If you could just stick your email into the chat box, the way we have 10 questions. And those questions, again, that are extremely important is how many in the traveling party? Are there kids? What are the ages of the kids? Now, the question is how much safari is too much safari is a very good question. So let's just say it's your first time, not even your first time, your second time to Africa. The clients are in their kind of mid to early 70s. Are they going to be, waking up every morning at 6:30 a.m., heading out on a game drive, coming back, having lunch, heading out on a game drive in the afternoon and doing that same thing for 10 days? Will it get taxing on the body? It could. So as long as you advise your client of this before they go, and that's why I'm saying when you're picking the client's brain, and these questions will help you, these are the sort of things that we put there. And, it's hard to gauge a budget. If you speak around a table of people that have never been to Africa, they'll go, oh, we can't afford that. We're still saving for that. Is that entirely true? No. It can be extremely expensive, but also find out where they've stayed in the past. People say, how do we know Singita is for our clients? Well, if you have an Amman junkie or a Four Seasons person, we know straight away that that's probably the right fit. But, again, we need to kind of really pick your brain, to pick the client's brain, to give us all that so that we can build the perfect trip to Africa. There really is that perfect trip, and it's based on the amount of information that you give. So what I'll do is I'll pop that those questions over to you, and then we could even hop on a call if you have any further questions, or if we have to add to that list for you too.
Yeah, thank you, Simon and Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
I think also going so far is just simply asking, are your clients, or are you comfortable in a tent? Sometimes I saw at Singita, advisors would send their clients to, say, Sabora tented camp in Tanzania, which is amazing, and it's like nicer than your own home, but they were totally uncomfortable being under canvas. It was just, they didn't feel as secure. So, just something as simple as that is also important to note. And I can't reiterate enough how amazing it is to have Simon or Tim or Ruby or Amy to jump on the phone call with you and your clients, because they can get down to those nitty-gritty bits and pieces very quickly, and then, turn around a really beautiful itinerary that is appropriate for your clients as well.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, Katie, with, Simon and the team. They really have the flexibility to custom make exactly what your client is needing. So depending on what you'll ask, and again, as a follow-up to everybody, we will send this, not only the recording, but we'll also send the questionnaire that is being discussed to everybody. So, thank you for that. But, as an example, going back to Rwanda, there are many ways to do that. And so the price can be high, right? But there's ways to bring that cost down. So depending on what your budget, what your client's budget have, you could do, of course, helicopter transfers or ground transfers, or even take like Rwanda Air commercial flights, right? That can really assist to manage a lot of the higher costs that you would maybe get if you were only doing, everything flying around via helicopter, right? If you have clients that can do that and have that, we'll of course book that for you. But the reality is that we have the ability to custom make everything. And that's the beauty of UJV Africa, because they're not going to throw you out a cookie cutter itinerary that is just sort of there. They really want to understand what's the true purpose of that trip, right? Just as Katie mentioned, maybe it has something to do with photography, or, did you talk to your clients that even though they're spending a few $1,000s a night in Singida, they're actually going to be sleeping in a tent? They might not be okay with that, right? So that's how also the beauty of UJV Africa comes alive, is when we have these 3-way calls or 4-way calls, right? When the UJV Africa team is on the phone with you as the advisor and your clients, and we're able to do that, and we do that all of the time. And I can guarantee you that not only with Simon's accent, but of course the expertise from everybody, we get to close those sales. And a lot of times they even upgrade into what even they were thinking, because they realize that there are other options for them. And so we love to do that. And I think that's the beauty of it, because we're not overseas. We're all in the United States, basically the same time zones as everybody else is on this call. So we could really maximize that and get answers very, very quickly and get people excited as well. So don't ever hesitate to let the team know, if you're working on the booking with them, that it's probably time to have that discussion with your clients, together. So that we can make sure that it's a perfect trip. I agree with what it says. If you only visit 2 continents in your lifetime, visit Africa twice. So, with that, I think that's a good closing point. I'm going to leave for maybe another, 30 seconds. Anybody has any more questions or anything that we can answer, we'd be delighted to. I did see a note from Kathy Bernstein that she was looking if we have anything about African island itineraries. So she'd love to see that. Kathy, without knowing, I don't know if you're looking for us to send you some sample itineraries that also include Seychelles, Mauritius, or Madagascar. I'm sure that Simon and the team would be happy to send those along your way. But this is also something that we do very well. We combine. And so to Kathy's point, it's not just about the wildlife. We can sell you the whole experience, right? So if you're up in Nairobi, it's very easy to get down to Mauritius or Madagascar. Same thing from South Africa. So any of the islands are definitely excellent complements to have that bush and sand experience, as it's affectionately called in the industry. I do have, I think, one question, and I'd love to read it, which says, with A&K, everything is turnkey and very luxurious. Even dinner reservations are sometimes made by them. Can UJV put together something for them at that level for ultra luxury clients? If so, I'd like to try it for the next Africa trip. Simon, you want to take this one?
I'd love to, David. Yes, and it's a name that obviously we hear a lot, is A&K, Mercato, and again, I'm going to use Mrs. Kathy Bernstein as an example here, because she was a loyal supporter of one of those brands, and she gave UJV Africa a try. And to answer your question, yes, We do everything for you, from the dinner reservations, from the luxury standpoint. Again, we work with all the luxury product throughout Southern and East Africa. And you'll find, again, all the little things that we do for you along the way and how we handhold you through that process. It's not only assisting you, but it's at a very high standard. You know, I look at the team and we always say to ourselves, what is the budget? Oh, a client came to us with $100,000. Does that necessarily mean there has to be a Singita or a one and only, like I mentioned in the start, in those itineraries? No, we will build it based, again, on what you tell us about the clients, how luxurious they are, you know, and enhance on those experiences. So there was something that we talked about actually just this morning, that now when your clients arrive into Cape Town, we can actually fly them by helicopter to the property of their choice. So if they're looking at staying at the magnificent 12 Apostles, we can get them in the heli straight off the plane, quick 10-12 minute helicopter flight, land at 12
Beautiful.
Apostles, and they're at the property. So when it comes to that level of luxury, we love to play in that space, because then that gives us kind of free reign to really enhance the experience.
No, thank you for that. We definitely can assist, you know, with those types of trips. There's a comment here from Kathy, which I've just, you know, she wants to highlight, and I know everybody read it, but it's really that, so we emphasize our 24-hour service, right? Simon was talking about like those emergency lines, but, you know, she had 2 incidents in the last month in the Rwanda, Tanzania trips that she booked with us, right? You know, in terms of disruptions, weather, etc. And the 24-hour service team really made it happen immediately. So she was safe, the client was happy, and we know that things change all the time, and that's why you want to have a trusted collaborator like UJV Africa that's assisting you with that. So there's one more question: that we have any social media assets to share? We certainly do, and so we invite you to follow UJV, Ultimate Jet Vacations, on Instagram, and we've got a lot of things that we are constantly deploying there that you can grab, and that we can also send you some other ones in case you need further inspiration. I think one of the things that, if any of you are interested, we also have a couple sample itineraries that we can white label for you fairly easily with your logo, right? And from your agency, that you could send out if you'd like, or maybe post on your social media or in your own newsletters to sort of help inspire. We have seen a lot that while that specific trip might not get booked, if it gets booked, great, but it actually, you know, allows for your clients to be like, you know what, I was actually thinking of that. I might not want to do that Rwanda experience, but I really want to go to Botswana. Come to us, right? We can really help you put all of that together. So if that is of interest to you as well, just send us an email, right? We're going to be following up with all this, and then that way we can get your logos and etc. in case that we don't have them, and would be happy to assist you with that, to help you inspire and close some sales as well. Yeah, Christine, we want to assist you guys. I think we started this by saying that UJV Africa is here to maximize your efficiencies and your earning potential. So it's not just about the additional commission that you're going to be earning, but it's really how we can co-collaborate, inspire, and come up with impactful trips that you'll be proud to showcase to your clients on that regard. So thank you for that. It's been extremely engaging. I love all these questions that have come in. I think that they finally slowed down a little bit, and we've kept mostly everybody on the call, which is great. But please remember that you've got that booking incentive. So let's sell so that we can choose the winner right at the turn of the new year and announce it, and be able to give you $3,000 and a nice trip to Africa. With that, is there any closing remarks, Katie or Simon?
Nothing from my side. I just want to thank everyone once again for joining today. And, you know, the best thing you can do is give us a try, just to kind of experience that magic that is UJV Africa. So thank you, everyone.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon, and we will send the recording out to everybody later on today. Goodbye.